Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Lynette Reeves. So Lynette, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Hi, well, I'm Lynette. I live in Sydney, actually just out of Sydney now, just moved outside, but Miramar Project Factory. We are based actually in Sydney itself, in the city, and we also have presence out in the UK and in LA as well. We are a digital development studio. We build apps, websites, platforms, custom. We do big custom platforms, integrated pieces of work. I've worked with them for nearly 10 years now. So I'm one of the oldest members of staff at the moment, like longest serving at this point. But we have boasted a lot of long-term staff over the years. So really happy to be with them and really believing in what they do for what we do actually as a business and what we represent as a company and who we represent as well, given that we are client facing. So yeah, that's what I do. I work in business development, but actually my background is project management. So I used to be a producer, actually building those products from the ground up. And then I've merged into business development, but also being consultancy in the behavioral psychology side of what we do, which is a big part of that. We do a lot of products in behavior change for either health or social impact. And I work with a lot of the producers to make sure that we're delivering on those aspects of their projects as well. So I wear a lot of different hats in the company, which is really nice. Makes it very varied.
Amazing. Yeah, so I'm curious more about the business. Obviously, you guys work on different verticals, different types of projects, but you are in a very competitive space. What kind of separates you from your competition?
Okay, well, that's a very big question. I would say what separates us, really it comes down to the fact that we're not a big agency. We are definitely a small to medium agency, and we like it that way. We don't necessarily want to be one of these big conglomerates. Now, I say that we are owned by the Miramar Group, which is a huge company, but we still retain our independence down here, and we are kind of an arm's length. They're like cousins to us. It's not like these full service agencies. So we kind of get the best of both worlds. But what we like to retain is that independence and that ability to be agile, working with clients, the partnership approach. We always say we don't like that client agency relationship. We like collaborative spaces. We like to nurture our clients over a long period of time. We value not just our partnerships with them, but how we are perceived alongside them when they are in market as well. So a good example of that is we work with a lot of startups. And so being able to collaborate with them, not just on their digital roadmap, but also how that might be marketed, how that might be positioned in the market, how we might follow their business plan alongside their digital roadmap. It means that we can embed ourselves really deeply into what they do and offer the best advice, offer the best situation for what they need to do. So that's what we do best, really, is to really make sure that we're embedding ourselves in the clients, really understanding the business from the ground up, and we can then insert ourselves in the bits that make the most sense. In some startups, we've even acted as their acting CTO as well, just to make sure that they've got that representation in when they're seeking funding and everything. We can actually act as their technology partner alongside that.
For sure. So, I mean, in terms of startups, right, like you mentioned, obviously you have an office in LA, you're also in Australia. What does that look like? I mean, obviously not just in the US, but globally, I'd say I think most startups are in Silicon Valley here in California. But is that do you have like, let's say a lot of clients there, or do you work with mostly like Australian clients? What does kind of like that breakdown look like?
Okay. Well, the interesting thing is Australia has a really great startup and innovation industry. Sometimes whatever government is in the days, usual story, they don't support it as much. But in general, we have a very innovative industry who want to be in that space. And that's everything from interesting digital. I mean, think of Canva. They're Sydney based. They still retain their offices around the corner from our office, and how big they are They are, for want of a better word, they are a Silicon Valley company.
Right.
Not, but they don't actually live there. They still retain that presence here. And it does feel like a very local company in that regard, even though they've got that global aspect. So yes, most of our business does come from Australia. We are literally, the majority of our staff is located in Sydney. It makes sense that Australia is our biggest market. The way we have entered into the UK and the US, the UK, we actually had a presence there for many years, and they actually were our social media and digital arm. And they were almost halfway separate from what we were doing. We would collaborate sometimes, but really they were on a slightly different trajectory than we were. So when the Miramar Group was merged in, we already had that presence in London where they are predominantly based. So we still retain that contact and those clients that we have in the UK that we've nurtured since that time. And then the ability to then go into the LA market has been, or I say LA, that's where we're based, but the American market has really made a big impact as well. But still the majority is in Australia with a good smattering of UK and American clients as well.
For sure. And so, I guess we just kind of spoke about competition, all those things, but in terms of verticals, do you guys kind of focus more on a certain vertical, or is it kind of like really anything tech or digital related? What does that kind of breakdown look like?
Okay, so the breakdown is there's not much that we will say no to in terms of the verticals, apart from some ethical considerations. We've turned down the gambling industry, for example, and we wouldn't work directly with tobacco agencies. That would actually be a conflict for us, given some of our other clients. But we do actually work mainly in Australia within the health vertical, but we've got a big, long history in entertainment as well. So we've worked with a lot of the big production companies out of both America and the UK. So 20th Century Fox, Universal, Sony, all of them we've worked with in some capacity or another, whether it's a campaign landing page for Deadpool 2 or we did a Twitter, what we call a Flock to Unlock for Beauty and the Beast, the live action remake a few years ago. That was great. The technology wouldn't be allowed now, but we do a lot of campaign related things in the entertainment space. Also a few websites here and there. We built the Leica Studios website, which we still love to this day because it's just so beautifully made with, their arts and culture that they really focus on there. In the UK a lot, we did work with a lot of production companies there as well. And now we're doing a bit more not-for-profit and health related stuff in the UK. And then Australia is very much all any vertical you can think of, we've probably touched base. A lot of hospitality and tourism, FMCG we've done a fair bit in as well. But like I said, health is still retained as our most well-known and our biggest impact over here. We're most well-known for our health products.
For sure. And then in terms of, because you mentioned, right, that you're more in the business development side, you're going out kind of helping grow this company, and you've been there for 10 years. You guys have grown obviously since then. So what have you done to really help grow this business and get it to where it is today?
Me personally?
Or just me and you.
In general.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I came on with MPF, there was 8 of us. I think there was 8 of us. So everybody had a really wide remit of responsibility, but it was fantastic to be able to touch lots of different areas. And like I said, I was project management at the time. But as we grew, it was simply a case of taking on bigger and bigger projects, moving from $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 projects into the $200,000, the $300,000. So making that leap, obviously we had to staff up, but getting those additional case studies allowed us to open a few doors. And there was at one point as well a very considered strategy that we did. For example, there was a project that we did about 5 or 6 years ago, which had a very fixed budget. It was a government project. It had a very fixed budget. We could not go over, but they wanted a lot out of it. So we actually took the internal decision to actually invest in that product ourselves, no equity or anything like that. It's government product after all. But we actively took on the risk of that because we knew that was the type of project that would give us the perfect case study to make a leap upwards. So we took on that very considered risk. We had an internal conversation about it with all the senior management team and said, do we want to take on this financial risk? And we all decided, yes, let's do it. And we made the most amazing product for them. And still to this day, we still reference it, we still use it, and it still generates business for us now. So it's paid itself over and over again, anything that we did there. But it was a very considered strategy. It's not something we would do lightly. We don't really necessarily have to do that anymore. either, which is really nice to know. Now we get to be a little bit more discerning about how we go into different projects. But now we've jumped up to that revenue level where we're taking on $500,000 jobs, $1 million jobs and upwards, where it's now big platforms, big integrated longer term roadmap platforms, and not just one and done products that have a certain shelf life.
For sure. And so in terms of scaling and growing this, like if you attended conferences or, I mean, I guess like what is kind of like your way to, grow? Is it more of just like, I mean, obviously you're focused or you have been going more locally within Australia, but has it been more like just cold outbound conferences, running ads? What has, been like your biggest or most successful strategy thus far?
The most successful strategy for us by far has been making sure that we work with our clients to deliver real outcomes and real results for what we deal with, because that excellent relationship that we retain with those clients pays for itself for new projects that we work with. We work with a lot of organizations that are very large, and we have done a few different projects with them over that period of time because lots of people can reference each other. Same with a few research outfits and universities, where they're big disparate organizations, but word of mouth internally means that we get to work on lots of different projects for the same organization, even with different teams. So that is the strategic word of mouth strategy for us. Absolutely is the biggest payback for us. We don't do any digital advertising at all. We do a little bit of social media and PR, but not heaps. And we don't tend to put ourselves in for a heap amount of awards. Only they do take a lot of time, but also it's not the reason we do things. We do them because they matter. Some of our other strategies, it may be, one new strategy that we're starting to do is now that we've actually recently moved offices and we now have our own space, which means that we can actually host some events. So we've been doing a lot of roundtable talks and Q&As and inviting targeted audiences into the office, and then inviting speakers and guests in a specific subject matter to come and talk about that. And we run them quite small. They're quite lean, 20, 30 people at most, but highly targeted people, whether they're people we know or, we're mining people on LinkedIn as well, or old contacts. And that seems to be working quite well because it's just making sure that, we're reminding people that we have got this history with these clients. And, sometimes we've been working with the same client for so long, they've turned over so many staff, they don't even know that we were the ones that they were working with originally. So it's kind of keeping that existing organization warm as well. But the traditional methods of advertising or paid advertising or anything in that space is not something we tend to do. Maybe that's why we're not bigger than we are, but at the same time, we actually quite like being smaller and nimble and not having to be beholden to too many stakeholders within the company itself.
For sure. Yeah. I think those meetups or in-person events, and especially if it's more catered, private events, things like that. I mean, it's definitely a great way because I think ever since COVID, right, more and more people are looking for that kind of in-person connection.
Yeah, 100%. I think so. I mean, we all love the virtual, the virtual working, but as we all kind of step that toe back into the office, I think people are starting to appreciate how much more effective people can be when they're in the same room. And that's not just with your colleagues, but certainly with people that you're meeting. We're making sure that we go out and speak to people and actually invite them in or invite them somewhere else or go to them. It's inviting them to say, let's talk in person, because there is something that got missed for the longest time for a good reason, but then we almost curled up and said, this is way more convenient to do it this way. Let's get a bit more uncomfortable again, and that's okay. Let's do this again. We're very lucky enough to have a hybrid working environment now that won't be changing anytime soon. So we get the best of both worlds, which is
for sure. Nice. So obviously now we're in a new year, 2025. So what are some of your biggest goals and objectives for this year?
Ooh, nice question. Probably, I would definitely say we want to be growing in the market in a general sense. We just keep those projects coming through at that good value that we offer, continue to grow the partnerships that we've got this year. We are staffing up at the moment in a number of different areas, yes, into marketing. We've also been investing in more salespeople as well. And I say sales, I don't like using the word sales because it sounds like it's all cold outbound stuff, and we tend not to do that at all. It's very much more curated people that we speak to. I think it's just really making sure that we're getting our name out there again in the market, because we are well known by the people who know us, if that makes sense. And we want to make sure that people really understand exactly what we do best and where we can help them and where we can partner with them long term.
For sure. So if you could go back in time to before you joined this company, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
That I can, gosh, one piece of advice I knew. Back then, before, remember when I started with MPF, I was a project manager. I was a digital producer, we call them over here. And being somebody who runs projects in a digital environment, there's no qualifications for that. You don't really learn it at university. People come from a variety of different job titles or different experience levels to land in the job that I was doing at the time. And I realized very quickly that it's impossible to know everything about digital. It is so varied. There is so much different technology. There's so much to the stack. There's so much to know. There's so many different bits and pieces that all need to work together. And it's always renewing itself. It's always changing, and there's new things coming out. And I wish I'd known then that it was okay to say you don't know something, because I tried to take on so much knowledge and tried to wing it in a lot of ways, faking it until you make it, until you realize that it doesn't get you anywhere. You can absolutely say, I can find this out. And I think that's the strongest thing you can do, is not to say that you can do everything, but that you know the people who can help you do everything. So if a client is asking us, do you do SEO? Yeah, of course we do. We may partner with other people to do that, because we have a whole network of people that we can work with, including within the Miramar Group, but not exclusively. So I wish I'd really known that it was okay to say, I don't know something in this industry, or I don't know how to deal with this specific client's problem, because that's the process. You've got to go through the process and the knowledge for that.
That totally makes sense. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you to work with you guys, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Well, you can email us. You can email me directly. You can email my CEO directly. We've even got an info at email address if somebody really wanted to use that one. But LinkedIn, we use LinkedIn a lot, just, reaching out. I'm more than happy to pick up a phone. We've got phone numbers. We're a very open book. And that, like I said, it includes our CEO. She's very hands-on with the business in every single sense of the word. So she finds it very empowering to know exactly how the teams are feeling, how they're working together, because then she knows how we can work on new problems coming in, or new clients or new projects that might need some imaginative type of solving to get that in the space. So you can reach out to us in a lot of different ways. Yeah, there's always somebody on the end of the email or the phone.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today.
No worries. It's been fun.